Alrighty, back again. So, my voice is getting wrecked from from all this streaming today. Ugh. It doesn't help that I'm sick, so bear with me. So, lots of interactive stuff to do now. So, let me just get the chat open here so I can follow along with what people are chatting about. So, what I want to work on, I think, next is basically making this whole thing interactive, right? So, why don't we do a quick commit here and just make sure that we've got this stuff kind of in place. So we'll just say add static modal, implement static modal design. So the next thing that we want to work on is basically turning this whole thing into just one giant view component, I think, for this whole page, and making it a little bit more dynamic with stuff like clicking things, selecting each podcast episode, having it tally up the amount down here, that sort of thing, and popping up this modal when we hit pay now. Making that AJAX request back to the server, getting Stripe elements in there. So we're going to be pushing it for time, I think, but we'll see how far we get. Worst case scenario, I'm going to keep streaming on this app anyways. I want to polish it up. Good stream fodder. I missed doing these live streams, so we'll keep adding new features to it and improving it. But still hopeful that we can get a very basic, minimal viable product in place today, where with any luck we can actually make calls to Stripe and get all that stuff actually working. So where should we start? Why don't we start by creating a view component and kind of throwing this page in there. So let's head over to assets.js, app.js, and why don't we start by just renaming example component. We'll use this as sort of our starting point. So we'll set this to 2 spaces because that's the correct number of spaces to use for these files. And let's think about what we want to call this. So when it comes to these full page components, this is not something that I end up making a lot in my apps, because I'm usually making Laravel server rendered apps that just have like little bits of interaction on them. But in this case, like this whole page is going to be a view component. I think that's going to be the easiest way to manage the shared state and everything anyways. So we have to think about what a good name for it would be. So I think maybe we'll just start by calling it something like new sponsorship page.view. And we'll just roll with that. So let's grab the old template here. And why don't we start by just pasting this entire template into the new component. And we'll make the component, we won't add any behavior or anything to it yet. We'll get rid of this for each thing. I think we could, if we wanted to, we could say v4 4. And then here we'll replace this with an HTML comment. I just want to get this to actually render. This is kind of the first step, right? And here where we're doing this dynamic 89 plus I thing, I think we can actually do v4i in 4. And then, if I'm not mistaken, this might still just work because we're not doing anything really fancy here. So let's save that. Let's pull in new sponsorship page. I'll be using Stripe Connect to connect other people's accounts, but I don't think I'm going to do like an application fee. I'm just going to make it a subscription thing. Probably like $20 a month. You just pay for basically using the tool. Otherwise, all the payment stuff is just directly between the customer and your Stripe account. I don't want to get in. I know there's some other tools out there that do like percentages and stuff that a few friends of mine have told me about, and it just seems like I don't care too much about trying to squeeze every penny out of this business. I would rather just make it something simple and straightforward, where you'd pay like a predictable amount every month just to be able to use it. Just keep it easy. So yeah, let's throw a new sponsorship page component in here. See what we got. So it looks like we got a big, dirty, old nothing rendering. So we got an app. Wonder why that's not actually showing anything. We got nothing in the console. If we look at the view, we got a new sponsorship page, which is not rendering anything. So what are we doing wrong here, folks? We got an issue because we have two root components here. Now, actually, that's even more suspicious, because basically we have some sort of invalid HTML problem going on that the browser was a lot less picky about. Actually, no, I think it's just the it's just that we have that modal at the bottom. So that's long-term not going to be a problem for us, but for now, let's make sure we get a single root node here. And okay, so now we're back to this. Okay, cool. Nice thing about rendering the whole page as a view component is you don't get like different things loading at different times. It sort of sucks that you get this white flicker for a second before the thing loads. But yeah, it's fine. So first things first, why don't we start by hiding this modal completely and just work on getting this stuff to work. So why don't we start by getting this to dynamically render multiple episodes. So I think the way I'm going to start is I'm going to add a data property to the components. And what I'm going to add here would eventually be a prop, I think. But for now, we'll just hard code it in as data, and then we'll refactor it to be a prop. But just like kind of making it incrementally more dynamic, one piece at a time. So we'll try and use the same language here. So we'll say sponsorable slots. This is going to be an array. Now we're going to basically be figuring out all the data that is necessary to render each one and kind of put it in here. And we'll eventually have to backfill that functionality to the server and kind of TDD out the fact that these pieces of data should be there. So, yeah, okay, so let's start with maybe the episode title or the sponsorable title. So I think we chose name for the actual sponsorable, right? Create sponsorable stable. So like podcast had a name. Yeah, should we use name for the slots too? It's hard to say. I kind of think I like title, like it's the episode title, but the podcast name, I think I'm okay with using both terms. Okay, so let's put in a title of Full Stack Radio episode 89. And we'll do this, we'll just create 4 here. And we'll just kind of like get some data in, make the template at least dynamic, and then we'll push this logic further and further back until it's totally real coming from the database. So up here now, instead of looping over 4, let's loop over slot in sponsorable slots. And I wonder if Vue is going to complain about this use of the word slot. So maybe we'll just go full out here. So here, we'll do .title. Man, I love using dots instead of arrows. JavaScript, man, what a great language. So let's pull up the Vue DevTools here, just so we have a reference. We can see, you know, if I go and change this to be 890, yeah, we are getting dynamic data here, so that's good. All right, moving along. Let's get the dates in place. So we had that as publish date, right? So let's make it. Now this is another tricky snake case versus camel case thing, because in JavaScript you want everything to be camel case, but with PHP arrays and with our models, columns, names, and stuff like that, we want things to be snake case. So do we want to translate that stuff before we send it to Vue, or do we just want to rely on it kind of being in the same format that it comes back from the database in? Not sure. So we already made the decision that we're going to send camel case or send snake case with our request. So maybe just to keep things simple, we'll roll with this sort of format. And I think we can just treat this as a string. So this should be like 7 June 6th, I guess, is tomorrow. I'm supposed to release an episode tomorrow, but I think it'll be out on Thursday, because I'm a horrible person and I'm too busy. 6th, so those are all whatever. Doesn't have to be perfectly accurate, so we'll just do the 4th of July, and then maybe the 18th. I don't know how many days have how many, or which months have how many days. It's no big deal. Okay, so thinking through this now, we have we have to render this date, which sort of sucks because it's in like a human readable format. So something I can never remember is with JavaScript, do you have to use moment just to get like a date object, like JS date? Probably moment is the thing that we should be using, right? I think life will probably be easier with moment. Now, I have heard that there's like an immutable or something like replacement for moment that people are using instead. JS new date. Yeah, moment is better. So moment JS alternative. I saw something about some people talking about this the other day. This thing. Date functions. I don't know. This seems kind of cool, so maybe we should play with this thing. Yeah? What are people's thoughts? Is date functions the shit or what? Cool. This is going to load? All right. You prefer moment. Okay. I haven't used either of them enough because I'm usually doing so much server-side stuff. Yeah, so how do you create one of these? So you still create a new date. Is there like a function for like parsing it from a format? Cool. All right, so why don't we throw this in here. So it sounds like we're going to want a subcomponent for this, because otherwise it's going to be nasty to try and do this date formatting. So why don't we create a new component called sponsorable slot.view. Okay, and basically grab everything inside this li and use that as the template here. So this is going to take a sponsorable slot prop. I don't think it's going to have any data or methods even. Might have methods eventually, some emitting some events and stuff. In here we're going to say sponsorable slots. Sponsorable slot equals sponsorable slot. Unbelievable. And let's make sure that we, you know what, we'll load that locally here. Components, sponsorable slot, import sponsorable slot from sponsorable slot. Don't need the extension, I don't think, but kind of nice. Yeah, I just worry about the view collision things. I think slot is a reserved word in certain places. So I'm just going to be explicit just to be careful. Okay, so let's see what we get. Are we running yarn? Run watch. I think I might have been too optimistic with how much we were going to get done today, but we're making pretty good progress still, all things considered. Okay, so we got a new sponsorship page. We got 4 sponsorable slots. That's pretty good. Perfect. Okay, so next we wanted to do this date thing, right? So let's import parse date from what was that looking like here? Date functions / parse. And basically, I think what we want to do here is have a computed section where we have like, I like using this this from Carbon in PHP. They have like diff for humans. So I always use for humans all the time on formatted stuff now. It's a nice little convention that saves me thinking about having to name things all the time. So I guess here we just want to return parse date sponsorable slot dot publish date, and then basically we want to format that. Now, is there a reason to use like this format versus versus the built-in one? I wonder. I'll just use it anyways, but. Okay, so we want to, now the thing that sucks about this is I wish this was chainable. Is there any way to chain stuff with this library? Date FNS chain. All right, so I guess we have to do this gross stuff. Unless anybody knows of a Babel transform for the pipe operator in JavaScript, because I would totally use that. JS pipe operator Babel? Is this a thing? Wonder if it got merged. Oh, it did get merged. So here's the thing, though. I don't know enough about Babel to even know how to how to make this work. Like, this is terrifying to me. So I guess we'll just not worry about that for now. We'll just do it the gross way. Format date, and it looks like we want format. If we want the full month, although I think I'd be happy with just a short month, we can do MMM. And the day of the month is going to be D. And then the year is going to be 4Ys. Yeah, writing your own pipe would be cool. That could work pretty easily. All right, so if we have date for humans, and we just wanted to render that up here, I guess this can just be title. I don't know, it still has to be sponsorable slot dot title. Yeah, okay, so that worked. That's sweet. The next thing we want is the price. So let's make sure that back here we have a price for each one of these. And I guess we'll do the price in cents and just do some math on the client. So just for making sure that things are showing the right values, let's make sure that we make these a little bit different. And I think I'll just do like the same thing here. We'll just say like price in dollars sort of thing. And I guess we'll do a $sign there. What is the best JavaScript money formatting library? Or JS, I guess I just need to like multiply by 100. But sometimes you want the commas and stuff like that. Currency format. I was looking through format currency. Is this the most popular one on NPM? I noticed like for some reason NPM downloads are like wrong today. Accounting JS. Yeah, accounting JS. This looks pretty good. All right, so looks like this gets a decent amount of downloads, I guess, although it's so difficult to tell. So is this not the original accounting JS? Where's the original accounting JS? That's not the right word. I'm really annoyed that NPM is not showing me the stats that I'm used to seeing, because it tells me like, am I using the right library that everyone else uses or not? But I guess I can kind of tell here, like only 75 stars. That's kind of not what I want. So what accounting.js do you pull in from NPM? Yeah, I saw international number format. I've used that before, but it doesn't have great browser support. All right, well, let's just add it then. Yarn add accounting JS. We'll just bloat up our bundle size here. Okay. See what the API is like for this. Yeah, the original one doesn't seem to be on NPM though. So I just wanted to make sure this is like the... Okay, so we'll pull in format number here. And what was I going to call it? Price in dollars. Return format number this sponsorable slot dot price divided by 100, and we want to do no precision. We just want to get the commas basically. So I think that's basically going to do what I want. So let's see. All right, so that is not what I expected. So the default precision is not what I expected. So we'll just say precision 0. Yeah. All right, cool. So now if we were to have a really expensive one, I should be able to, we should see a bunch of commas and stuff, which is what I want. So that's good. I think the imports are the same. I just copy and pasted that from the documentation. So I think in this case, I mean, I'm sure Webpack is smart about it no matter what. In this case, they have separate files for each function, which is what they've done up here too. It's probably to make tree shaking easier. I think Webpack tries to be really smart about it, but this is probably still easier. If you want to sponsor that $50 million episode, I would even be willing to give you a 75% discount. Okay, cool. So we're displaying all the prices. The image should probably be associated with each one. So why don't we grab that source here. We'll take these prices and we'll just say like image URL. And here we'll just bind source to sponsorable slot.image URL. Snake case and camel case all together in one property. Disgusting. All right. Cool. Oh, Mohammed, it must be, I'm guessing it's probably pretty late where you are. I don't know what the time difference is, but you're a real trooper. Okay, so now we want to basically be able to select things, I think is probably like the next step. So, actually, these should all probably have IDs too, just to be safe. So why don't we give these an ID, just auto incrementing for now so that we can make sure that we key our for loop here. So we can just say key is sponsorable slot.id. All right, we're still good. And now we basically want to keep track of which ones are selected, right? So we could say like selected slots, and this could default to an empty array. And I'm trying to think like what's the easiest way now to pass that information to the sponsorable slot. We basically want to tell the sponsorable slot whether or not it is selected. So we could do that with a method, but it kind of feels like wrong to use methods in Vue to get values. So basically, like, if you wanted to basically do like a V model on this, it's like a checkbox, really. So I'm trying to think like how can you do custom V model checkboxes in Vue? That's like something that I haven't even thought about. Like if you look at form inputs, you have like checkboxes, right? So you can do, now I think this won't work with, I don't think this will work with components. Because like with components, you can do V model stuff, right? But I don't think you can make them behave like checkboxes, which is not the end of the world. Like there's two ways I can think to do this. Basically, we could either have a method where we have like selected equals like is selected, sponsorable slot or whatever. Or we could say like selected slots dot includes sponsorable slot dot ID sort of thing. Which is not like horrible, right? Like I've heard of worse ideas than this. But another approach would be to pass through all of the selected slots and then just have that item send you back the full list modified with itself included or not included. So it's just two ways that we could kind of think about doing it. The other thing is like array.includes. You need a polyfill for Internet Explorer, which we would still need to do that anyways, but we won't worry about supporting that for now. If I was building like an SPA, I would experiment with Vuex more, but because this is just like one page that just needs its own local state, and we're not doing a bunch of like switching between routes and trying to maintain client-side state, then it just seems like not really any benefit using Vuex, that is. I don't know if I mentioned that, just responding to the chat. So, okay, let's experiment with this approach first and see how it feels. So props. So we'll have selected as a prop, and let's just say in here we'll say v if selected otherwise we want to have these other two. Nice if I could just change this color of this icon on hover, but because we're switching to a totally different icon style, that's not super easy. So we have to kind of have this redundant conditional stuff. Okay, so selected is false. Let's update this array to maybe have 1 and 3 in it. All right, so those are selected now. I guess I also need a way to unselect these, which is easy, but didn't really think about it. I would have used velse, but the problem is we have to display both of these in the velse situation, which means we'd have to wrap them in a div. And that would just make us have to do some weird things with the just with the markup and the CSS stuff. So this just seemed like the simpler approach. I don't think I'm going to need to do anything with Vuex when it comes to like AJAX calls or anything like that. Like just there'll be another component that makes an AJAX call. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I think it'll be okay though. Okay, so just for argument's sake, let's just say that we default to having like components or slots 2 and 3 selected. So those are there. We want to basically set up a click handler on this div now. And if we want to make this accessible, we're going to have to think about making this work with keyboard navigation and making this like this should probably behave as a checkbox. But for now, let's just kind of do the naive, inaccessible approach. We can make that a separate lesson maybe if needed. So on click, we basically just want to emit a select event passing through sponsorable slot.id. Kind of seems like the simplest way to do it. And then up here, actually, that's not true. We want to call it toggle because it's going to be two different behaviors. So it's worth having a method for it. If this dot selected, then sickness killing me. I'm trying to think what's the best way, what API I really liked for this. Like, typically you just like emit a changed value, you know what I mean? Like a true false. So like if you look at, for example, how vModal stuff normally works, you normally have an input event and a value prop, right? So, okay, let's change this. Like we could just have value true false, you know what I mean? Let's do it inline again. We'll just emit an input event and we'll just pass through not this dot selected, just like the opposite of whatever it was before. Man, I'm feeling even rusty on my view, which is kind of funny. And then here, basically, we want to have an event listener where we listen for the input event. And we basically want to either remove the item or add the item, depending on the value. So like this is actually kind of making me think that I would prefer to manage this where I pass through like the whole selected array, and this component just sends me back like the updated array every time. But I don't know if I actually like that a lot or not. So let's think. The problem is like if we do it this way, like this code is going to be complex because basically we're going to be saying like this is going to be a function that receives in basically a new value, right? And then we have to do like a bunch of crappy logic to say like if new value, then do some horrible stuff, else do some horrible stuff, right? Because basically the code to update this list is going to be somewhat complicated. Like we have to say if the new value is true, then we want to push this item onto the selected slots array. If not, then we want selected slots to equal what it was before with that like filtered out. So I don't know. Maybe that is fine though. Let's make a function called handle sponsorable slot input. Just so we have a place to kind of write this nasty logic. And why don't we import the old Lodash here? We'll pull it in the whole thing, whatever. And we can just say if new value this dot selected slots equals this dot selected slots. And you know what sucks about this is like we don't actually have the slot. is it like, is this how you get the event? I think it is. So I have new value, and we'll have sponsorable slot. Something like this. Else this dot selected slots equals underscore dot filter this dot selected slots. Slot. Basically, we just want to return slot dot ID does not equal sponsorable slot dot ID. And we've probably made a big mistake in here somewhere, but let's just see. So I don't know if anything's actually firing here. So let's just console.log. Blah. Yeah, I'm sick. I got a bad cold, so. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so they turned on, if you notice that. So that's good. But we have a problem where, so 2 and 3, if I click this one doesn't change. So it's almost like new value is always true or something. False, 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 false. So that means that I feel like we should be hitting this condition, right? Classic JavaScript debugging. Yeah. Which means I feel like selected slots should be changing. Filter this dot selected slots using this callback. So only keep the slot if its ID doesn't equal the ID of the incoming slot. So why don't we wrap this in a real thing here. And we'll console.log slot.id and sponsorable slot.id. I just kind of want to see what's happening here. Undefined. Okay, so we'll console log slot. Oh. Yeah, because it's not an ID. Or it's not a slot. It is an ID. Cool. So the reason I loaded Lodash was because I wasn't going to use filter, now that you reminded me of that. And I think I was going to do it using, is this the method I'm thinking of? Yeah, without. This is what I actually was planning to do. Now, is it really better than filter? Probably not, but it's kind of nice. Okay, so, I mean, that's decent. The hover states, I feel like we need to maybe show like a circle with a line, like a delete sort of state maybe. That's okay. Okay, so I feel okay about what's there. So why don't we work on the some other state here. So how about keeping track of like how many episodes are selected? So we have that information. We just need to display it. So this is going to be like selected slots.length. And then episode, that's going to be annoying. Basically, we want to say selected slots.length triple equals 1. Then episode, otherwise episodes. Two episodes, 1 episode, 0 episodes. I have never really done much view testing. I played around with that view test utils library a little bit, but I haven't gotten good at it enough to be faster at doing things that way. Especially when stuff is changing so drastically all the time when you're just tinkering around. So this is still the best way I know how to do this stuff. So I can test the Laravel stuff pretty well, but the view stuff is still something I got to dig into and get good at. All right, so what about this price here? So that's going to be actually interesting. So I thought I computed method or computed property, and it's going to be total in dollars, probably something like that. And I guess we're just going to return this dot slots dot is there a Lodash method for keeping items in an array? Let's pull all by. I'm sure there's an easy method for doing this that is eluding me. Intersection by. That's fine. We'll just write it the lame way. So we'll filter it where we'll say slot select or this dot selected slots dot includes slot dot ID, and then we'll reduce that by taking the slot and returning slot. Actually, we'll take the accumulator or the total. We'll return total plus slot dot price. We'll start at 0, and this will actually be total in cents. So maybe we'll just call this total, and then total in dollars. Here, we'll just return this dot total, and we'll pull in this currency formatter thing again. So we'll return format number, this dot total. We'll do precision 0 again, although that's going to fall apart as soon as somebody has cents in their stuff, but that's okay for now. And yeah, let's see if that gives us anything good. So let's just look at the view dev tools and we can look at that. Error during evaluation. Perfect. So what am I missing here? Sponsorable slots. All right. Cool. So total in dollars, we forgot to do the math. And now up here, we can just render that out. Okay, so let's say total in dollars. We'll hard code USD because that's all I'm going to accept for now. And yeah, so that's working. So that's cool. All right, so why don't we commit that? How long have we been going? 51 minutes? Okay, so we'll keep going. We'll commit this, and then we'll try and get that modal stuff going. All right, so let's say basically make sponsorable slot list dynamic interactive. Nothing to it. And then we will add some state for keeping track of whether this modal is open. So this is what I'm going to do next. I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it pay for sponsorship. Button. It's kind of a long name, pay button. Yeah, I might make it open source. I'd like to. I just need to make sure that that's not a bad idea. That's my only fear. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to use a pattern that I talk about in my Vue course that I really like for modals, where you sort of bake the modal into the thing that triggers the modal. So we'll start by doing some of this inline. So first let's do yarn add portal view, because we're going to need this. And then in our app.js, we're going to need to require that too. So let me just make sure that I remember the exact syntax for setting this all up. This is a really good tool, by the way. So I guess we're going to have to do const portal view equals require, because we're in like node land here, right? Not in ES6 land. Also these semicolons, get them out of here. And maybe we can just do this. Yeah, seems like code that should work. Okay, so yeah, if we do that, then I should be able to go back to the for now, let's just put a portal target here. And we'll call this modals, and we'll say multiple, just to be safe. Let me pull up the docs. And then here, I think we will we'll extract this to a separate component eventually, but let's just start by making a portal to modals. And we'll just say modal open here, and we'll just have some data where we have modal open defaults to false. And with this button, I'll say pay now. And let's copy some of the styles actually. So multiple lets you render multiple things to the portal at the same time, which is useful when you need to animate modals in and out. It's hard for me to explain all right now, but that ended up being the solution for me to some really annoying problems. So basically it lets you render multiple things there at once, which means a parent can say, okay, I'm not showing my modal anymore. That modal can fade out, and the portal can still remain. Because what I was doing before was I was conditionally rendering the actual portal itself, and that means that the fade out wouldn't happen because the thing that was fading out, its parent was getting removed from the DOM too fast. But I digress. Let's pull in the pay button. And Yeah, am I missing anything? I think we might be getting there. Okay, so let's do the old @click equals modal open equals true. And then let's make sure we actually use this button. This is going to be a pay button. And let's just do pay now. We'll do the text in here and we'll use a slot for that. Okay, so the pay button is rendering nothing. This should be VF maybe. Surprised that the button isn't rendering, to be honest. So it's upset about something. Oh, yep, good call. Nope. Okay, so pay now, modal opens. Cool. Okay, so that's decent. Let's make a new component called the complete purchase modal.view. Now, so normally I would make this a lot more reusable, which maybe we can do in a future lesson or a future screencast, whatever. But for now, I'm going to kind of like make this the only modal that we have. So we're going to have an open prop. It doesn't really need any data. Actually, yes, it does. What am I talking about? vShow on open. And here we're just going to have a complete purchase modal. And we're just going to bind open to modal open. And we'll just make sure that we import complete purchase modal from complete purchase modal. So we'll register that component. So sick of typing. And let's just see if we're back to the same spot we were at. Okay, so it's still working. But now we have like a isolated place where we can do some other stuff. So let's do like an @close equals modal open equals false, something like that. And maybe here we'll, in our mounted callback, or created will work. We can say const escape listener equals basically we want to close this on escape. So when someone presses escape, basically we want to say this dot emit close. And I think we want to say if, so we're going to get an event here, right? So we want to say e dot, what's the escape key code? JS. 2009. I do not want to read that one. Key code 27. See, there's also like another way to detect keys in, it's like not key code, it's like key something else. Yeah, event.key. So I think like this would work in any browser. Key down event key. Oh my goodness. If we pull this up in MDN, yeah, keyboard event.key, this is what I'm thinking. Escape. Is there a reference table or something for all the different? Yeah, this is what I'm thinking of. So we look for escape here. Yeah, so that's probably more readable, but I don't know how compatible it is with all browsers. Like, if you look here on this table, if I remember correctly, there's like browser support or something somewhere that made it look like I could basically depend on it. Like, it even works in like Internet Explorer 9. So you can't add key down listeners to a div unless it's focusable. So it has to have a tab index, which I don't think is the best way to solve this problem personally. So here we can just go documents.add event listener, key down, escape listener, and then here we can do this dot dollar on hook before destroy. Document dot remove event listener, key down, escape listener. Make sure that we clean up after ourselves here. But if we did that right, we should be able to escape out of this now, and we can. So that's cool. We also want to handle like the click away behavior. Now, something I recently learned is that the best way to handle that is using this focus out event that I didn't really know existed before. So I'd be curious to see what that looks like, to be honest. Basically, you can do at focus out equals handle focus out. And then we can add a method called handle focus out where we get an event. And if we console.log that event, hopefully I can learn the things I need to know how we're going to make this work. So basically, focus out fires anytime you blur an element. And the difference between blur and focus out is that focus out propagates to the parent. So if I tab here, you see that the focus out event fires because I focused out of this element and that bubbled back up to the modal itself. So what I need to know is what the element that it's going to move to is. So if I click then we focused out, and is it related target? Is this the element that I'm yeah, okay, so it's related target. So basically we need to check if the element contains the related target, then okay, so let's say ref modal, and you're going to learn as I learn here. So basically we want to say if this dot refs dot modal dot contains dot related target, basically return like a guard clause. Otherwise we want to this dot emit close. So let's see if that works. So we open this, tab, 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 tab. Interesting. I like that. And if I click outside, it doesn't close, so that's not good. So let's move this to this element and the focus out to that element. And I think this will be like the best, this is like the ultimate click outside behavior. So it still doesn't work, eh? When I click here. Oh, is it because we didn't have a focus out happen? Okay. So if I open it, I need to focus this element on open. Because otherwise, a focus out event does not fire. Okay, so it's interesting that that's necessary. And it kind of sucks because we have to do it with a watcher. unless anyone could think of a different way to do it. But I think we have to watch open if new value is true, then this dot next tick ref equals company input. Yeah, autofocus, I wish autofocus worked, but it's not that simple, unfortunately. Okay, so that's not focusing, so that sucks. This dot next tick, let's console log. Okay, so we are here. Ref's company input, ref equals company input. Feels like I named that reasonably. What am I doing wrong here, smart people? The only thing I can think of is that this is firing too early. Like, I bet you if I do set timeout, 100. Yep. So that's a bummer. So even next tick is too fast to get that to work. I've done things before with Vue using like another mix-in helper thing that forces a re-render like synchronously, but it's kind of a bummer that you have to do it this way. Does set timeout with nothing work? It appears just a set timeout is enough to do it. Now, is a set timeout not in the next tick enough to do it? I bet you not. View next tick focus not working. Yeah. I have some code for solving this problem somewhere. Right after you modified some reactive data. For your use case, it seems more appropriate to do this. Like, attached is not what I want, though. Like, that's too late. So, let me think what project I would have that in. I definitely have this somewhere. View trigger layout. Any way to force re-render? Yep. I think this is maybe. No. There's a thing that Vue does internally in its own code where it just like calculates the yeah, here we go. Like, we're probably going to find it here. Anywhere where there's like some ESLint like disable stuff. There's a place in the code where they do this trick. I wonder if I'm going to find it or not. Here. So as long as you call document.body.offsetHeight and you assign it to something, then everything will be done by then. It's so stupid, but basically you can do like const underscore equals document.body.offsetHeight and then this, and this should work. No, eh? This dot next tick. Dude, this focus thing is a nightmare. Can't believe that. Okay, well, I guess we'll just use a boring old set timeout for now and make a note to revisit this because this is really lame. Set timeout is fine, I guess. It's just like not very expressive as about like what we're actually trying to do. Like I feel like Vue should give me a way to just hook into like do something after everything has been rendered. Like when it's safe to know that this thing actually exists or whatever. But it's fine. We'll just roll with it. Does request animation frame work for this? I don't know. It says it happens before the next repaint. Is that what I want? The thing is, it only is going to get mounted once, though, unless I like conditionally render the component. Like conditionally render the entire component, which just seems unnecessary to me. So it's fine. We'll just roll with this, and I'll bug someone who knows more or who has a good solution for it later. Okay, so I mean, in general, this feels like pretty good. It calculates everything. We can hit pay now. Let's make sure that we're getting like the actual value being rendered there. So we're going to want to pass that through. So let's pass through a prop. We'll pass through the total. So we'll say amount is equal to total. We'll say amount in dollars is equal to total in dollars. We could recompute that in the button. But it seems like we might as well just pass it through. No, we should probably recompute it, even though that seems stupid. All right. We'll pass it through. And I guess I don't need it in the button itself. I need it in the modal. So I guess we'll just copy some code, really. So we'll have a computed section here. Amount. All right. So that's going to be this dot amount. Amount is going to be a prop that comes in that gets passed through from the button. So we'll also pass through the amount here. And now inside this modal, with any luck, we should be able to just do amount in dollars. And that should reflect this value now. 950, 1,000, 2050. Sweet. Okay. I think we've been going for a long time on this one. An hour and 16 minutes. I guess that's about average. I am going to take a 5 or 10 minute break, and then we are going to work on Stripe elements integration, I think, will be the next step. And then once we have the Stripe stuff working, what should we do after that? Like, we still got a bunch of stuff to do. So we still have to make this data basically get passed back from the server. So that might be like another stream. So I'm losing confidence that we're going to get this done today, because I want to be done by like 5 my time at the latest, which is like an hour from now, which is a disappointment, but we're doing okay. I mean, I'm still happy with where we're getting. So we'll take a quick break. Then we'll play around with getting Stripe elements in here instead of this like pretend credit card email field thing. And yeah, once that is set up, then we should be able to make a little bit more progress. So take a little break and be back in a bit. See ya.